All right, so we just tested out some augmented flash techniques and lighting concerns dealing with contrast. I've plugged in my memory card. I'm not going to move over all of my photos to the desktop. So first I want to just open the memory card, scroll through the photos I just took, starting with the test shot of that acoustic panel, and then just double click them to open them up in preview. I'm going to shrink preview a little bit so that I have the film strip clearly visible and then blank desktop here to move it to. So that's a pretty balanced exposure. If I want to have the tools adjust color open, that way I can actually see the histogram for each one as well and make sure that there's nothing really spilling over either end. This is a little lacking in the light side, but I could bring that out. There's potential there. This one, not good at all. This one, not good at all. Those are just with the flash. Not good at all. You see how narrow the histogram is and how much content is missing. So not only is it lacking a strong light or a strong dark, it's very low contrast towards the middle. It's just missing a lot of that value range. Now this is actually a little bit stronger. This is the augmented flash. It's just slightly different, but you can see how it chunks a little bit more broadly between lights and darks. So maybe that's the test shot I want, and I'll drag that over. And that was augmented with the tracing vellum. This was augmented with the handkerchief, and that's a little bit too dark, right? You can see how it's spilling across the side, so that means there's lost content there. So that's not an exposure I want to use. On the projector, it looks like solid black to you, so not a good one. And then this one was augmented with my fingers, like these, and some of them are interesting, but they don't give me the value range that the others did. So that was the best shot of that set. Okay, now we have some shooting through my fingers. A lot of interesting value range there, but a lot lost too. Not enough. My watch, lots of good value range. Problem was, it was too long in exposure. It was too shaky. So let's see if I did better with some of these. Look at that hairy arm. So much testosterone. That's okay. I don't like that we don't have too many lights, and that's a little bit too direct lighting, so then I augmented it, and now I'm getting a little bit more. You see how the highlights aren't quite so strong. So that might have something I can bring out. But then I put it on a chair, and I tried for more subtlety, but you see how ultimately, because there's a black chair, it's just all too dark to really bring a lot out of. So I'm going to bring that one over. Now looking at some of the ducking. Generally, you can take a lot out of the darks, right? Like there is content there, but it's very grainy, and I don't want to have to force the ISO too much. This is using the snood or the snoop rather, and just letting the flash go on one side or the other. This one's not too bad, but the blacks are spilling across. But here's the reason we do these studies, is because we can crop into it. And even though that's all lost to blackness, there's a lot of good exposure content in here that might be useful. So I'm kind of liking the look of that. So I'm going to move that one over. So from your shots that you bring next class, I'm going to want you to bring over 5 of them.
Does it have to be these?
No, that's why you're going to go shoot in more interesting places. But from 5, then we'll edit down to 3 that will really work for the assignment. It's very challenging to shoot with very little light. So this was an augmented flash where I got the snoop to kind of light it only on this side to break up that red local color. And that's got some nice development to it as well. So I think that will have some good potential. And now I just need one more. And that's pretty nice. You can see how it goes all over the place. but the darks are coming from this corner, which isn't on the object itself, so that's not the strongest. And then this, I just want it in focus. Let's see if I could really bring that out. In there's some good potential, so I might bring that over. Actually, it was this one. Bring that over. And you can bring more than 5 over, but my first job will be to get it down to 5. This is just the difference between just a straight flash, even at a distance. The flash isn't so strong it's blasting it out, but it makes everything look flat. And then augmenting the flash, you get a lot more dimension from it. And this is a pretty nice histogram value range I can work with. And now, here's the difference when you're shooting in higher light. You see, the intensity of each wavelength is not strong, but look at the spread. The spread is very strong. So this has a lot of potential to it, of getting a full range of values. That one's actually quite nice. See the histogram there? Pretty strong. Inside the garbage cans, not quite as much as I want, but there's a lot of interesting value in there that can be brought out. Yeah. All right. I might use some of these for assignment 2, our texture assignment. But for now, I'll bring this one over. Okay, so now I'm going to eject my memory card. I've pulled over all of them that I think have potential. You want to make sure you quit preview before you do that. I tried to quit preview. Let's see. There we go. And now I immediately take the memory card out and I put it back on my camera so I don't leave it in the computer. All right, now I have to do more specific looking at them and try to get down to the 3 I want to work with, thinking of what kind of square composition can I get out of there that really showcases contrast. This has beautiful gray values, but it doesn't really go dark enough or bright enough. This I think I could bring out to really show those forms. If I look at the histogram, it's a nice peak there that can be extended, and you can even play with it and kind of see how that works. It can be extended without losing content. See that? So that has more potential. Though I'm not going to do that with preview, I'll do that with Photoshop. So that one might work. This one has some nice contrast in here with content. This one I'm thinking is too narrow a range, so I'm not going to mess with that one. And that one's a bit too narrow a range as well, even though I like it. This one's very geometric. And I'm squinting to see the value range. And yeah, I'm kind of liking those shapes, so this might be a good one. So this is how I generally mark the ones I'm thinking of. I'll mark them with a color. The ones that I think have the most potential. And then this has a lot of potential for value, but I don't know if the contrast is going to be that strong just because of the directional lighting. All right, but it's good to have a backup. Okay, now with those 3, move those separate And I'm going to organize a little bit. I'm going to say contrast exposures in a folder. Move all the others into it in case I need to go to one of them. And I want to look at my favorite of these three, the one I want to work with right away. And I'm going to open that one up in Photoshop. Okay? Now this is the process for how we will process them in monochrome. First, we're going to process them to get maximum contrast in the area we're looking for and taking the color out. And then once we've done that, we will crop them. Okay? So we won't crop until the end, because cropping is when you lose visual information. First step we'll always do when we bring in exposures is we'll make a duplicate of the background. So Command J. That's so we can always go back to our original exposure if we need to. So here's my first copy layer. And on this layer, I'm going to do a direct adjustment. I'm going to go right to Adjustment Levels. I'm going to optimize the histogram here. So if you see nothing next to it, you can push it up to make sure you have a solid white. Now this histogram is a little misleading. I actually have a solid white. They're in the highlights of the watch. So instead of really brightening it up, where I'll lose a lot of information, I want to keep that white where it is, but I want the first place you're safe to play with is the midtones. I think I want to brighten up the midtones a little bit. So notice, even if I make the midtones really dark, those are my bright highlights. I want to keep those, but I want to brighten the midtones to kind of even it out. And then I already have dark darks, but if I feel like I need to make them a little bit stronger, I can push the shadows. But in general, on your exposures, you don't want to mess with the two edges much. You want to just push those midtones a little bit darker or a little bit lighter to suit your needs. And when we get into low contrast exposures, you can actually limit your highlights like that, or limit your shadows like that. But right now we leave that alone. Then you hit OK. So that's a levels adjustment. It's subtle, but it brings out a little bit more value range. Next, I make a duplicate of that. And we're going to do all direct adjustments before we do layer adjustments, just so you can see all the steps you're doing until we learn. So my next adjustment is going to be the color. And I'm going to go to Hue Saturation. And I'm going to take my saturation all the way to 0. Now, I didn't allow you to shoot with black and white settings in your camera. And that's because I wanted your digital sensors to use the red, green, and blue all together. I didn't want that to be limited at all. And we adjusted the levels first in full color because that's more sensitive than if we took all the color out first. But now I take the saturation down to all the way to -100. It takes all the color out. Then I duplicate that, Command J, and I go back to Hue Saturation. And now I click Colorize. Okay? Because there is no such thing as pure black and white in photography. I want you to use a saturation that's 10 or lower, and you choose the spectrum that works for it. And so if I want to do more like a sienna type, which takes its name from cyan, from kind of a bluish color, I might process it here and make it a little bit more subtle, like at a 5 saturation. I think that looks pretty nice. It brings out the value range well. Big difference from no color to that. Just makes it feel a little bit more rounded. We call it monochrome because there's only one color and its values. All right? Now what's tricky about that is you need to remember those settings. So sometimes what I'll do, just to repeat that step, you copy your desaturated layer, you go to Image, Adjustment, Hue Saturation, you click Colorize to force color into it, and then you take the saturation to no more than 10. That's as saturated as I want you to go. Or you can go a little bit lower if you like. So I'm going to do 7, 181 is good. Now to remember these settings, I'm going to use